It was past midnight when the rain began to pour harder, turning the empty highway into a river of shadows and headlights. Lightning flashed, thunder cracked. Most cars kept speeding past, except for one patrol vehicle that slowed when the beam of its headlights caught something strange. A child, standing near the guardrail, soaked to the bone, arms wrapped tightly around a big, trembling German shepherd. Officer Carla Reynolds pulled over fast, heart thudding in her chest. She opened her door and called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The boy didn't move. His face was pale, eyes wide, lips purple from cold, but he held on to the dog like his life depended on it. The shepherd didn't bark. He didn't growl. But his eyes were sharp, protective, never blinking as he stood between the boy and the officer. Carla stepped slowly into the rain. "It's all right, sweetheart. I'm a police officer. I can help you." Still silence. The boy just buried his face in the dog's soaked fur. The dog leaned into him, his body shivering, but he didn't back down. Carla reached for her radio. "Dispatch, I've got a miner on Highway 16. Appears to be alone with a dog. No sign of a vehicle. I need backup and an ambulance." She clicked off and crouched closer. "I'm not gonna hurt you, but we've got to get you both out of this storm. Please, come with me." The boy still didn't speak, but the dog took a small step forward. That was enough. Carla took off her jacket, knelt down, and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. He flinched, but didn't run. She gently reached for his hand, cold, wet, tiny. "Come on, kiddo," she whispered. With the dog walking close, the boy let her lead him to the squad car. She opened the back door and helped him in. The dog jumped in right after him, not waiting for permission. Carla raised an eyebrow. "Guess you're sticking together, huh?" Inside the warmth of the car, the boy sat quietly, still hugging the shepherd. The dog's eyes never left Carla, alert and watching. She tried again. "Do you have a name?" No answer. "What about him?" she asked softly. "What's the dog's name?" The boy didn't speak, but his hand moved slowly, resting on the dog's head. They drove through the storm in silence at the station. Carla carried the boy inside, wrapped in a blanket. The dog padded behind, soaked but calm. The other officers paused, watching the strange pair enter like a scene from a movie. One officer whispered, "Where'd she find them?" "Highway 16, Carla replied. "Alone, no ID, no shoes, and not a word spoken." The medics checked the boy, no broken bones, but bruises down his back and ribs. Old ones, new ones. A story written in silence. The dog refused to be separated. Anytime someone tried to move him, he growled. Low, not threatening, but warning. One medic backed away. "He's protective." Carla nodded. "He's all the kid's got." Later, after the boy was dry and resting on a cot in the corner of the station, Carla brought him a cup of warm cocoa. She sat beside him, careful not to crowd him. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," she said gently. "But you're safe now, I promise." The boy looked at the cup, then slowly took it. The dog lay cold at his feet, finally. Resting, Carla watched them for a long time, then stood and whispered to herself, "Which one of you rescued the other?" She made a note in the report. Unidentified male child, approximately 10 years old. Found with German shepherd, non-verbal. Appears traumatized. No signs of immediate physical emergency. Protective bond with animal is strong. Will not separate. She didn't write the part about how her heart cracked when the boy flinched from touch but leaned into the dog without fear. She didn't write how the dog had scars, too thin ones, along his side, barely healed, or how the two of them, sitting side by side in the glow of the station's soft lights, looked like survivors of the same storm, different battles, same war. Around midnight, Carla walked past again, thinking they were both asleep, but the boy looked up suddenly and whispered one word, "Tank." She froze. Is that his name? He nodded slowly. His voice was barely there. Okay, Carla said softly. Tank it is. Then, after a long pause, she tried again. And you? What should I call you? Silence. But the boy looked down and tugged at the tag on the dog's collar. It was old and rusted, but just visible. K9 Unit Tank, a retired police dog. Carla knelt down, eye level with the boy. Did he find you, or did you find him? He didn't answer, but Tank raised his head and placed one paw gently over the boy's knee, as if saying, "We found each other." Carla stood and whispered, "All right then, we'll start there." She turned off the lights. Outside, the storm began to fade. But inside that small station, two hearts, one scarred boy and one broken dog, had already begun healing, dashed together. Asterisk, asterisk, the boy didn't sleep much that night. Neither did Tank. Every time someone walked past the holding room, the German shepherd would lift his head, ears perked, eyes sharp. The boy just curled tighter into himself, one hand always resting on Tank's fur. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the silence inside the station hadn't. Officer Carla brought in breakfast, eggs, orange juice. She placed it on the table near the boy. "It's warm," she said. "You should eat." The boy didn't move. Tank growled softly, not in anger, but warning. Carla raised her hands gently. All right, I'm not gonna hurt him." Behind the glass, a younger officer whispered, "What's with that kid?" "No ID, no name, won't talk," another replied, "and the dog won't leave his side." They all kept watching, waiting for something to make sense. By noon, Carla tried again. This time, she sat on the floor, a few feet from the boy. "You hungry?" she asked. Still nothing. "Mind if I give him a name? The dog, I mean." The boy blinked, but didn't answer. Carla smiled. "He looks like a tank. Big, strong, but not too mean. What do you think?" The boy's hand tightened around the fur. She continued, soft but steady. "And you, we gotta call you something. Can't keep writing unknown male in the report." Still silence. "Okay," she nodded. "How about J, just for now? Short, simple." The boy didn't object. That was good enough. Carla stood and walked to the others. "We're calling him J, and the dog's Tank." One officer scoffed. "They're not gonna talk." "Maybe not," Carla replied, "but they're listening." Later, the child services rep came in, a stiff woman in a navy coat, clipboard in hand. "I'll need to separate them," she said flatly. "No," Carla said instantly. "It's protocol. You try separating them," Carla challenged. "See how far you get." The woman frowned and stepped toward the boy. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you cleaned up." The second she reached out, Tank snapped to his feet, teeth bared, a deep growl rising from his throat. The woman gasped and jumped back. "That dog is dangerous." "No," Carla said calmly. "He's protective." Jay pressed his face into Tank's side, breathing fast. The boy wasn't scared of the dog. He was scared of being taken. Carla turned to the rep. "You separate them, and you'll break what little trust we've got." Grudgingly, the woman backed off. Fine, but this isn't standard. Nothing about this is. That night, Carla stayed late. She brought in a dog bowl, a blanket, even a stuffed bear someone had left in Lost and Found. Jay didn't touch the bear, but Tank sniffed it and lay down beside it. Carla crouched by the cot again. "He's a police dog, isn't he?" she asked. Softly, used to be at least. That collar tag. K9 Unit Tank. Jay's fingers moved along the dog's collar. Carla leaned closer. "He was trained, but he left with you. That doesn't just happen." Still, the boy said nothing. Carla exhaled slowly. "You don't have to speak, but I want you to know something. We're not here to take him away from you, or you away from him." Jay finally looked up, just for a second, but his eyes, tired and full of something deeper, met hers. It was the first time he saw her, really saw her. Carla gave a faint smile. "You've been through something, both of you. We just don't know what yet." Back in her office, Carla pulled up the system. She typed "missing boy. Approximate age 10. Found with German Shepherd. Highway 16. No results. No alerts. No one was looking for him," she whispered. "No one's kid." It haunted her. The next day, they tried offering toys, books, even cartoons. Nothing worked until Tank nudged the TV remote. The boy stared at the screen, eyes following a cartoon dog leaping across. Rooftops to save a girl. Jay reached out and raised the volume slightly. Carla noticed. She sat beside him. "You like dogs, huh?" Jay didn't answer, but he did lean just a little closer to Tank. It wasn't much, but it was something. Later that evening, another officer asked, "So what's the plan? We can't keep M here forever." Carla didn't answer right away. She looked through the glass again, the boy, curled into the dog like it was the only safe place left in the world. Then she said, "I'm going to find out who hurt them, because someone did. And Tank, he didn't just find a boy, he rescued him. They didn't know how or from where. But one thing was clear. The boy and the dog had been running from something, and whatever it was, it hadn't caught up yet." If you feel connected to this story, please like, share, and let know your city or country below. Jay sat quietly on the examination table, eyes lowered, arms tight around Tank's neck. The nurse moved slowly, careful not to touch the dog, who watched her every move. "I just need to check your side, okay?" she said gently. "You've been favoring it." Jay didn't answer. He winced when she lifted his shirt. The bruise on his ribcage was deep and purple-shaped, like a boot. Carla stepped closer, her jaw tightening. The pattern was too clear to ignore. "That's from a kick," the nurse muttered, "and not an accident." Jay flinched at her voice, but didn't speak. Tank nudged closer, resting his head on Jay's lap. The boy's fingers curled into the dog's fur. Carla pulled the nurse aside. "Anything else?" The nurse nodded. "Bruises on his back and legs. Some older, he's been hurt before." Carla whispered, "Someone did this to him, recently." Back in her office, she couldn't stop staring at the boot-shaped bruise in the photo. She knew abuse when she saw it, but she didn't know who had done it or why the boy wasn't listed as missing. Later that day, Carla noticed Tank limping slightly. She crouched beside him. "You're hurt too, aren't you?" Tank didn't whine, but when she ran her fingers along his side, he flinched. Hidden beneath his thick fur were scratches, some raw, others healing. She gently checked his legs and found more cuts near his paws, like he'd run through wire or glass. "Where were you two?" she whispered. What were you running from? That night, she brought Jay a warm drink and sat across from him on the floor. Tank lay curled beside him, always between Jay and the world. You're safe here, Carla said. No one's going to hurt you, or him. Jay looked at her for a long time, like he was trying to figure out if he could believe her. Then, quietly, he whispered, "Don't take him." Carla's breath caught. Jay added, even softer, "He saved me." That was the first time she heard his voice. It wasn't loud or strong, but it held pain, fear, truth. She leaned forward. "I won't take him, I promise." Jay's eyes welled up. He hugged Tank tighter, burying his face in the dog's fur. Tank stayed still, like he knew the moment mattered. Later, Carla typed up a report. Child shows signs of repeated physical abuse. No missing persons report found. Dog has injuries consistent with recent physical conflict. Child verbally confirms. Dog protected him, will not allow separation. Strong emotional dependency observed. She paused, fingers trembling. Then she added, child may have escaped a dangerous environment. Further investigation needed. The next day, Carla tried again. Jay, she said gently, can you tell me what happened? Where you came from? He shook his head, eyes dropping. She didn't push. Instead, she placed an old police badge on the table. This belonged to a canine officer. His partner said he once pulled a kid from a burning house, saved his life. Jay looked up, Carla smiled. Dogs like Tank don't forget how to protect people. It's in them. Maybe he used to be one of us. Jay's hand moved to Tank's collar. He rubbed his fingers over the metal tag. Did he have a badge? Carla asked. Before, Jay hesitated, then nodded slowly. That nod told her more than words. Carla stood and walked to the other room. She called her old contact in the canine unit. I need a search, she said. Retired German Shepherds. Look for any named Tank. Any time frame? The officer asked. No, Carla replied. Just find him. He's important. Back in the hallway, another officer watched through the glass. You really think the dog was trained? Carla nodded. The way he moves, how he watches everyone. He's not just a pet. Then how did he end up on the road with that kid? That's what I planned to find out. Carla knew this wasn't random. Not a lost dog. Not a runaway kid. Tank had chosen Jay, protected him, taken hits for him, fought someone, maybe more than one, and Jay, he trusted no one but the dog. That kind of bond doesn't happen overnight. Something terrible had happened before the storm. The bruises said it. The scars confirmed it. But now, the truth was finally starting to slip through. All because of one whisper. He saved me. Asterisk, asterisk, Carla watched Jay from the rearview mirror. He hadn't spoken again since those 3 words. He saved me. But something had shifted. He sat straighter now, one hand resting gently on Tank's back. The dog stayed alert, eyes scanning the road. Carla slowed the cruiser as they passed the county line. She wasn't sure why she drove this way. Maybe instinct, maybe something deeper. Jay hadn't said where he was from, but as they passed the abandoned farmland, his whole body stiffened. Tank growled low, a sound that came from deep inside his chest. Carla's eyes followed their gaze. A rusted red trailer stood near the edge of a dying cornfield, paint peeling, windows broken, not a soul in sight. Jay's lips parted, just barely. Carla asked gently, You recognize this place? No reply, but his shaking hands gave her the Answer. She pulled over, keeping the engine running. I'm not going in, just looking. Tank stood up in the back seat, his ears sharp. His growl deepened. Carla whispered, something happened here, didn't it? Jay didn't nod, didn't blink, just stared at the trailer like it held ghosts. Later, back at the station, Carla typed the address into the system. A few old records popped up: minor violations, noise complaints. But one stood out. A call logged 2 months ago by a neighbor who'd heard screaming from the property. No charges, no follow. Up. Carla narrowed her eyes. Why didn't anyone check this? She visited that neighbor the next morning. An older woman, tired eyes, trembling hands. Yeah, she said. I called. I heard kids yelling, a man shouting, dogs barking like crazy. Did you ever see a boy? Carla asked. Or a German shepherd? The woman paused. I remember the dog, big, black and tan, scared me. But the kids, they didn't come out much. One looked small. Could have been your boy. Carla showed her Jay's photo. The woman nodded slowly. That's him, I think. That was enough. She drove back to the trailer, this time with backup. The place had been empty for weeks, maybe longer, but the signs were there: padlocks on the inside of doors, a broken kennel cage. In the shed, scratch marks on the walls. And in the backyard, a rope still tied to a metal stake in the dirt. Carla knelt down beside it, heart sinking. Tank would have been chained there. She found pieces of dog food scattered near the shed, a water bowl overturned, and under a pile of tar bloodstains, faded, dried, but real. Inside the trailer, the air was thick. Mattresses on the floor, chains, a belt left hanging from a nail. One officer said, someone used this place to hurt kids. Carla nodded slowly. And this is where Jay and Tank escaped from. Back at the station, she sat down across from Jay. I went there, she said softly. To the trailer. Jay didn't move. I saw the stake in the yard, the cage, the belt. His eyes lowered. You were chained there, weren't you? And Tank too. Jay's lip trembled. She placed a photo on the table. A blurry print from a security camera, taken months ago from a nearby gas station. It showed a man dragging a boy toward a van. Behind them, a German shepherd pulling hard on a leash, teeth bared. That's you, isn't it? Carla whispered. And that man, is he the one who hurt you? Jay's hand shook as he reached for the photo. He didn't speak, but a tear slid down his cheek. Tank stood and rested his head on Jay's knee. Carla placed a hand on the table. You don't have to say anything, but I believe you. And I believe him. Jay looked up. His voice cracked. He broke the chain. Carla leaned in. Tank did. Jay nodded. He bit the man. Let me run. It was the first real piece of the puzzle. And it was enough. Carla stood slowly. Then that dog didn't just save you, Jay. He fought for you. Outside the window, the wind moved through the trees. But inside that station, a truth had finally found its voice, and it had teeth. The morning after Jay's whisper, he broke the chain. Tank began acting different. He moved through the station like he was back on duty, nose to the ground, ears up, eyes sharp. Carla noticed first when he stopped in front of the janitor's closet and barked once, loud, focused. Then he sat and stared at the door. Tank, she called softly. What is it? He didn't budge. She opened the door. Nothing unusual, just mops, buckets, cleaning supplies. Tank sniffed the bottom shelf, then looked up at her. Okay, she muttered. You're trained, aren't you? Jay stood nearby, hugging himself. He remembers. Carla nodded slowly. He's not just a dog, he's a cop. The rest of the day, Tank moved through the station like he knew every corner. He sniffed under desks, pawed at the evidence room door, stopped at a cabinet full of old files, and barked again. One officer chuckled. Maybe he's looking for treats. Carla shook her head. No, he's searching. She followed him too. The back of the building, where an old filing cabinet stood, forgotten. Tank stood in front of it and barked. Sharp and urgent. Carla opened the drawer. Dust flew. Inside were dozens of records, closed cases, inactive files, and one folder labeled K9 Unit Retired. She flipped through it. Her hand stopped at a familiar face, a German shepherd, standing tall next to a man in uniform. The tag on the dog's collar, TANK, K9-47. Carla stared. It's him. Jay stepped closer, eyes wide. He touched the photo. That's him, he whispered. That's the man. Carla looked closer at the handler's name. Officer Ray Maddox, retired. Last assignment 3 years ago. The report said Maddox was let go after a disciplinary review. Alleged misconduct, unconfirmed. The dog was decommissioned, supposed to be reassigned, but no records showed where Tank went after that. How did you end up with him? Carla asked Jay. Jay's lips tightened. He was there, at the trailer. They made him stay. He watched, but he didn't move. Carla lowered her voice. He was trained not to act without orders. Jay nodded. He kept waiting, but no one came. Carla felt sick. Tank had been forced to live with a man who hurt children. A man he once served beside. And somehow, the dog had broken that training. Broken a chain. Risked everything to protect a boy. That wasn't instinct. That was choice. Back. At her desk, Carla dug deeper. Ray Maddox had left the force quietly. No charges, no investigation followed. Just a recommendation for early retirement. She called her old sergeant. Hey, do you remember Officer Maddox? There was a pause on the other end. Yeah, why? Did anything ever happen with his dog? Tank, the sergeant sighed. We lost track. Maddox said he was taking him to a private home. Never filed the papers. Dog just disappeared. Carla whispered. He didn't disappear. He was chained in a backyard with a boy. She hung up and turned to Tank, who was now sitting beside Jay. Calm, watchful. You waited, didn't you? She said. For someone to tell you to protect. And when no one did, you chose him. Jay looked up. He was scared too. At first he just watched. What changed? Carla asked. One night, the man hit me, hard. Tank barked, loud. But the man told him to sit. He did. Jay paused. Next time, he didn't sit. He growled. Then he bit. Carla nodded slowly. That's when you ran. Jay's voice cracked. He broke the chain with his teeth. He bled. Carla leaned in. He didn't just protect you, Jay. He turned against his training to save you. Jay placed both hands on Tank's neck, gently hugging him. He didn't stop running. Neither of them had. Carla typed up a new report. Dog formerly known as K9-247, registered as Tank, assigned to Officer Ray Maddox, currently in protective custody with minor male identified as J. Evidence suggests the dog broke protocol and fled abusive environment. Further investigation recommended. She saved the file, then looked through the window at the boy and the dog curled together. No more barking, no more growling, just silence. But Carla understood now. Tank had seen too much, waited too long, and when no one else came, he became what Jay needed most. Not a pet, not a partner, but a rescuer. Asterisk, asterisk. Carla sat stiffly at her desk. The video paused on her screen. A white van pulled up beside an old gas station. The timestamp matched the week Jay and Tank were found. She hit play again. Jay burst from the back of the van, barefoot and panicked. He stumbled, then ran. Just seconds behind him, Tank leaped from the same door fangs, flashing ears, back full speed. In the background, a man chased after them. His face was partly hidden by a hood, but not enough. Carla froze the frame. There you are. She brought up a file she'd almost forgotten. Ray Maddox's former associate. His name had come up before in an internal report. Suspicious ties. No charges stuck. She zoomed in on the face. No doubt now, it's him. Jay stood at the edge of the room, watching silently. Tank rested beside him, still and alert. Carla turned to them. Jay, was this the night he chased you? Jay nodded slowly. He grabbed me. Tank bit him. Carla asked, do you know the man's name? Jay hesitated, then whispered he called him boss. That sent a chill down Carla's spine. She forwarded the video to her captain. I need clearance to reopen the Maddox investigation. I've got new evidence, he replied moments later. Do it. But be careful. She took a breath and said quietly, it's not just a runaway case anymore. Carla printed a still from the footage and brought it to Jay. Is this the man who lived in the red trailer? Jay pointed at the photo. He locked the doors from outside, made us stay quiet. Carla crouched. Were there other kids? Jay's face darkened. Yes, but not for long. They'd leave and never come back. Tank whined, nudging Jay's arm. Carla whispered, how long were you there? Jay answered with eyes full of pain. Months, maybe more. Carla stood, fists clenched. She'd seen enough. She sent the video and photo to a federal contact. The reply came quick. Suspect linked to 3 open trafficking cases. We'll need full testimony. But that was the problem. Jay was just a kid, and Tank was a dog. Neither could speak the way courts wanted. Carla looked at Tank. You were there. You saw it all. That night she reviewed every file on Maddox's crew. The van had been spotted twice before, once near a school, once near a shelter. Nothing ever proven. But now she had proof. Or at least, a trail. She asked Jay, did Tank ever leave your side while you were there? Jay shook his head. He followed me everywhere, even when they tried to lock him out. Carla smiled gently. He chose you, Jay. Jay's voice cracked. He wouldn't let them take me. Carla filed the new report with the caption, video footage shows minor escaping white van accompanied by trained K9. Suspect identified. Dog demonstrated protective behavior consistent with former police service training. She sat back, drained. Tank, you're not just a rescued dog, she said softly. You're a witness. Jay whispered, he remembers everything. Carla nodded, and that might be enough. She brought in a vet the next morning, someone experienced with retired K9 South. He's still sharp, the vet said after the exam. And those scars, fresh, defensive wounds. Carla asked, would a dog like him attack unprovoked? Not unless commanded, or unless he saw a child in danger. That was all Carla needed. She returned to the footage, and pressed pause on the frame where Tank flew out of the van, teeth bared. Straight at the man, she whispered, "You weren't running away. You were fighting back." The case had changed, no longer a question of who hurt the boy. Now it was about who tried to keep him hidden, and who, against all odds, brought him out of the dark. Carla laid the gas station footage aside and faced Jay, who sat quietly with Tank at his feet. The boy hadn't said much since the video, but something about seeing that van again, about remembering that moment, had shifted something in him. She knelt beside him, her voice soft. "Jay, if you can tell me anything, anything at all, it might help other kids." He gripped the crayon in his hand tighter. On a piece of paper, he'd been drawing quiet lines, shapes, shadows. But now, he stopped. His hand trembled as he looked up. "There were others," he whispered. Carla's heart skipped. "Other kids," Jay nodded slowly. "They cried. At night, we couldn't talk. If we did, he'd hurt us." Carla glanced at Tank, whose ears had perked up. Jay kept going, his voice barely more than a breath. Tank was tied up, but he watched, every time. He picked up the crayon again and drew a long red line across his own arm. "He hit me here. I bled." Carla whispered, "What did Tank do?" Jay swallowed hard. "He broke the lock. He bit him. That's when we ran." Tank pressed closer to Jay, as if reliving it. Carla stood and stepped out into the hallway. She grabbed her radio. "I need a full unit to the red trailer just outside the county line. Bring forensic support." Within the hour, 3 cruisers rolled up to the property. Carla stayed behind with Jay, but she monitored every update. Officers pried open the back room. Rotted wood, mold, trash everywhere. Then one called in, "Carla, you're gonna want to hear this. We found something under the floorboards." She closed her eyes. "Tell me, there's a hatch, nailed shut. Took 2 of us to get it open. Underneath, it's bad mattresses, chains, blankets, toys, old food wrappers." She swallowed. "Anyone still there?" "No. But this wasn't long ago." An hour later, photos started coming in. Faded sneakers, tiny shirts, marks on the wood, scratches, scrapes, and bloodstains that had soaked into the floor. One officer muttered through the radio, "This was a holding place for kids." Carla's voice cracked. "We're too late." Back at the station, she sat in front of Jay again. She placed one of the photos on the table. A worn-out stuffed animal, missing an eye. Jay's lips trembled. That was Emma's. She was 5. Carla held back tears. "Did she get out?" Jay shook his head. "They took her one night. She didn't come back." Tank let out a soft whine, pressing his muzzle into Jay's lap. Carla whispered, "You weren't supposed to survive, were you?" Jay didn't answer. He didn't have to. Tank had made sure he did. Later that day, the news broke. Police uncover underground holding space linked to suspected trafficking ring. Evidence points to multiple children being held. No arrests made yet. Carla slammed her laptop shut. She looked over at Tank. "You didn't just save Jay," she said. "You helped us find them. All of them." Jay leaned into the dog and whispered, "You were braver than me." Carla stepped closer. "No, Jay, you were the one who ran. You were the one who spoke. Tank gave you a chance, and you took it." Jay looked up slowly. "Can I help them too?" She smiled gently. "You already have." Jay nodded and hugged Tank tight, like he was holding on to the one piece of his life that still made sense. Tank didn't move, didn't blink. He just stayed, always between Jay and the past. Asterisk, asterisk. Carla sat in the records room, fingers brushing over faded folders. Somewhere in the system, Tank had a file, a badge number, a story that had been buried. She opened another drawer, and there it was. K9 247, Tank assigned to Officer Ray Maddox. Service years, 5. Status, retired pending reassignment. But the file wasn't complete. The last page was missing, Carla whispered. Why wasn't this finished? She scanned the notes. Tank had served in search and rescue, narcotics, and even trauma response. Commendations lined the pages. But something changed after a mission 2 years ago. One line stood out, handler reported. Behavioral hesitation under pressure, dog removed. From active duty pending retraining. She frowned. Tank didn't fail. Something happened to him. She checked another document tray, Maddox's exit form. No explanation, just an early retirement and a signed release to take Tank for personal care. Carla muttered. He never turned Tank in. He took him. At the station, Jay sat cross-legged, sketching Tank's collar. The number. The badge. Carla placed the open file beside him. Jay. This was Tank's record. He used to work like the other police dogs. Jay stared at the photo. He had a job. Carla nodded. A partner. A badge. But he disappeared after that man took him. Jay lowered his eyes. He made Tank watch. He told him not to move. Carla's voice softened. That's why he didn't help at first. Jay looked up, but then I cried. And Tank got up. Even when he got hit. Carla flipped the page. He was reprogrammed, obedience only, but you made him remember who he really was. Jay's hands shook. I didn't do anything. Yes, you did, she said. You gave him a reason to fight again. Tank lay beside Jay, quiet, watchful. Carla reached for his collar. She gently unclipped it, flipped it over. Still there. Under the worn leather, a small metal badge. K9-47, unit number. Officer, Maddox, she whispered. You never stopped being one of us, did you? Jay took the badge and held it in both hands. Like it was something sacred. Do you want to keep it? Carla asked. Jay nodded. It belongs to him. Later that day, Carla stood in front of the captain's office. We need to press charges, she said firmly. Maddox took that dog. Used him to control those kids. The captain frowned. We don't have enough. It's all circumstantial. Carla slammed the photo on his desk. Look at this. Tank was chained outside that trailer. He has service scars, handler tattoos, and a badge number that traces directly to Maddox. And the boy, he asked, he remembers everything. But he's too young to testify alone. The captain sighed. What do you want me to do? Let me build the case. Let me use Tank, his training, his record. We treat him like a retired officer, because that's what he is. The captain shook his head. A dog can't testify. Carla leaned in. No, but he can lead us to more proof. To where those other kids were taken. Let him show us what he remembers. Back in the hallway, Jay waited. Carla crouched down. Do you think he can help us find the others? Jay looked at Tank. He never forgets. That evening, Carla opened the old storage room. She laid out the uniform Tank once wore, a faded patch. His old vest. Tank sniffed it. Then sat. Carla whispered, You remember, don't you, Tank? Raised one paw. Jay smiled for the first time in days. He's ready. The dog with the badge hadn't just remembered who he was. He'd chosen who he wanted to be, and this time, no command could stop him. Tank's badge sat on Carla's desk, still scratched but shining under the dim light. Jay hadn't let go of it all night. Not until he fell asleep with Tank curled beside him like a shadow that refused to leave. The next morning, Carla got a call. Unknown number. No voice. Just a message. Go to the old 9th Precinct basement. Back corner. Look for what's left. Then the line went dead. She wasted no time. The building had been shut down for years, mostly forgotten. But something in her gut told her this was connected. She grabbed gloves, a flashlight, and headed out. The basement was cold and smelled like dust and rusted pipes. Boxes were scattered everywhere, some tipped over. Old papers, broken furniture, ripped up case files. She reached the far corner. A steel cabinet stood there, half-melted, fire-scarred. The lock was broken. Inside, most of the folders were blackened. Unreadable, but one thick file had only the edges burned. Still intact, the top label read, K947, Final Handler File, Maddox R. Carla opened it slowly. Inside were pages of training records, psychological evaluations, even reprimands. But it was the photo that made her knees go weak. Tank. Sitting, tall, lean, alert, in full gear, and beside Himre Maddox, same man from the van. The same man Jay had escaped from. Only now he was in uniform. Back at the station, Jay sat in the quiet room, sketching again. Carla walked in and placed the photo on the table. Jay stared for a second, and then froze. That's him, he whispered. That's boss. Carla sat down. He was Tank's last partner, his handler. This whole time, Jay's hands curled into fists. He made Tank do things, told him to sit when kids cried, told him not to move. Carla spoke softly, and Tank obeyed. Until you, Jay's eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to be special. I just wanted to be safe. Carla touched the photo. You didn't break him, Jay. You freed him. She went through the file carefully. At the bottom, she found something else, in internal memo, half-burned. Concerns raised about Officer Maddox's conduct during home visits. Unverified reports. Subject denied all accusations. File closed, Carla muttered. They knew something was off, and they closed it anyway. The betrayal settled like stone in her chest. She stood and marched to the captain's office. We've been covering for a monster. He looked at the charred file. Where did you find this? Old precinct. Someone left it for me. Someone who couldn't stay quiet anymore. The captain sighed. And the boy, he remembers everything. He called him boss. He remembers the commands, the orders, the silence. The captain looked at the photo again, and Tank. He followed those orders until he couldn't anymore. That afternoon, Carla sat with Jay again. You know what this means, right? She asked. We can prove who Tank belonged to. We can prove who you escaped from. Jay nodded. He wore gloves, so no fingerprints. But he smelled like oil and soap. Carla smiled sadly. That's more than enough to start. Jay slid the photo back to her. Don't let him hurt anyone else. Carla looked at Tank, who was watching the door, waiting. She whispered, we won't, not anymore. The burned file had almost been lost, but now it would become the one piece that tied everything together. A dog's past, a boy's pain, and a truth that could no longer be buried. Asterisk, asterisk, the courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back. Lawyers whispered. The air felt heavy with something bigger than just a trial. Carla sat beside Jay, his hand gripping Tank's collar like a lifeline. Jay wasn't allowed to take the stand. Too young, too fragile. But Tank didn't need words. He remembers everything, Jay whispered. He saw it all. Carla nodded. And today, they're going to see him for who he really is. The prosecutor began with body cam footage. A video taken from an officer's vest showed the raid on the red trailer. Officers moving through dark rooms. Then the moment Tank pushed through the door, teeth bared, planting himself in front of Jay. He protected the boy before we even got there, the prosecutor said. That's not instinct, that's loyalty. They displayed photos of the bite. Mark on Maddox's arm. Perfect match to Tank's jaw size. The dog attacked only after the boy was struck, the prosecutor explained. Just like he was trained to do. Before that training was twisted. Then came the GPS collar records. They showed Tank's movements for months, never leaving that property. Always circling the same points, chained, caged, watching Jay. Leaned closer to Tank and whispered, "They're starting to believe you." The defense lawyer stood. Objection. This is a dog, not a witness. Carla stood. He's more than that. He's a police officer. With a badge. With a record. The judge looked down. The court recognizes that this animal has provided evidence critical to the investigation. Let the people decide what that means. And then, Carla walked Tank to the center of the room. No leash. No command. Just himcom, alert, steady. The jury watched as he sat. Not scared. Not aggressive. Just there. Like he always had been. The prosecutor pointed to him. This is not just a pet. He was trained to obey. But when that obedience meant watching a child suffer, he broke free. He disobeyed evil. Silence filled the room. One juror wiped their eyes. Another leaned forward. Tank didn't move. Didn't. Blink. Carla whispered. You're doing great, boy. After court recessed, the defense tried to discredit the evidence. Said the boy was confused. That the dog reacted out of fear. But Carla held up the badge. The one that still had Tank's number on it. This badge wasn't fear, she said. It was service, and he never stopped wearing it. Back in the hallway, reporters swarmed. One asked, Officer Reynolds, do you believe a dog can testify? She looked down at Tank. He already did. Later, in the station lobby, Jay sat on the bench, quiet. Carla sat beside him. Did they believe him? He asked. I think they did, she said. I think they saw the truth. Jay placed the badge gently back on Tank's collar. He never stopped protecting people. Carla smiled. No, he didn't. That night, the jury deliberated. No one slept, but in the early morning, the verdict came in. Guilty, Jay cried into Tank's fur, whispering, we're free now. Tank just closed his eyes and rested, not because it was over, but because, finally, someone had listened. The wind rattled the porch screen, and Tank's ears perked. He lifted his head from the old rug, watching the door like he always did, waiting for J. inside. Jay's quiet voice floated from the living room. He was reading out loud, the book, open across his lap. And then, he said, pausing to glance at Tank, the dragon wasn't scary anymore. Tank wagged his tail softly. Jay smiled. It was small, but it was real. Months had passed since they left the shelter and the cold. Nights. Now, they lived in a yellow house on a quiet road where the air smelled like grass and the porch creaked. Just enough to feel safe. Carla had fixed up the spare room with blue curtains and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. She let Jay pick them out himself. He didn't say much then, just pointed. But now he read stories out loud. That afternoon, Carla stood by the kitchen sink, drying dishes when she heard laughter. It was soft at first, like the wind, but then it grew. She peeked out the window. Jay was running barefoot through the yard, Tank leaping beside him, chasing butterflies. Tank. Jay giggled. They're too fast for you. The golden retriever barked and darted after another fluttering wing. Carla pressed a hand to her heart. She hadn't heard Jay laugh before, not like this. It had taken months. Some nights were still hard. Thunderstorms came, and when they did, Jay would flinch. But instead of crawling into a closet or hiding behind a door, he would reach for Tank. One stormy night, thunder cracked like a whip across the sky. Jay froze in the hallway, his fingers clenched. Tank whined and nudged his hand. "Don't go," Jay whispered, his voice shaking. Tank didn't move. He lay down at Jay's feet and waited. That night, they both stayed on the floor, curled up. Together, the boy's arms wrapped tight around his best friend's neck. In the morning, Carla found them like that. She didn't say anything. She just stepped over them and made pancakes. "Is he okay?" she asked, gently later. Jay nodded. "He kept me safe." Every day added a little more to Jay. A little more sunlight in his eyes. A little more confidence. In his voice, he didn't like school, not yet. But he sat on the porch with Carla and Tank while she taught him letters and numbers. And when she was busy, Jay read to Tank. Once upon a time, he said one evening, a dog found a boy in the dark, and the boy followed the dog home. Tank tilted his head, listening like it was the most important story in the world. Sometimes, Jay still had bad dreams, but now he would wake up and whisper, "Tank." And every time, Tank would be there. They didn't need many words between them, but the ones they did share mattered. One evening, Carla brought out lemonade and sat beside Jay on the steps. The sun was going down, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Jay leaned against her shoulder. "Why did you help us?" Carla looked at him, surprised. "Because everyone needs someone," she said. "And you and Tank needed each other. But you also needed a home." Jay was quiet. Then he said, "I think this porch is my favorite place." "Mine too," she said, brushing his hair back. A butterfly floated near again, and Tank sprang to his feet, giving chase. Jay laughed, not just a giggle, a full laugh that filled the space between the trees. "You'll never catch it," he shouted. Tank ran anyway, his tail wagging like a flag. The house wasn't big, the yard wasn't fancy, but it was safe. And for the first time in a long time, Jay didn't feel like a problem to be fixed. He felt like a boy who mattered. That night, he tucked Tank into bed with him and opened another book. "Ready?" he whispered. Tank gave a sleepy woof. Jay grinned. "Okay, chapter 1. And under the glow of plastic stars, his voice filled the room, not shaking, not silent, just warm. And the dog beside him. He never stopped listening. J held Tank's leash tight as they stepped onto the station's front steps. It was the first time he'd come back since the storm, the one that changed everything. Tank's tail wagged, but Jay's fingers trembled. Carla stood beside him, her hand warm on his shoulder. "You okay?" she asked. Jay nodded once. "Yeah, I think so." Inside, the room went quiet for half a second. Then, like someone flipped a switch, the officers rose to their feet. Applause filled the air. "There's our hero," one of them shouted. Jay froze. His face flushed pink. Tank barked once, proudly. Jay didn't know where to look, so he stared at Tank. The golden retriever stared back with calm, steady eyes. Jay knelt and hugged him without thinking. The officers smiled. Some had tears in their eyes. "Jay," Carla said gently, "look at the wall." Jay turned, and there it was. A new mural painted across the station's back wall. It showed a boy, soaked in rain, hugging a canine in the middle of a storm. You couldn't see the boy's face, just the way his arms clung to the dog like he never wanted to let go. Jay stepped closer. The painting looked real. The rain, the boy's soaked clothes, the fur of the dog, every detail was there. But it was the feeling in the picture that caught your heart. He blinked fast. "That's us," he whispered. Carla nodded. They saved each other. A lump rose in Jay's throat. He reached for Tank, wrapping his arms tight around his neck. Tank leaned into him. "Forever," Jay whispered. Tank licked his cheek. A tall officer stepped forward. His name tag read Garcia. He knelt so he was eye level with Jay. "You know," Garcia said softly, "not all heroes wear badges. Some wear muddy clothes and walk beside a dog who never gave up." Jay gave a shy smile. "He found me when no one else did." "You found each other," Garcia replied. "That's what matters." Carla stepped in. "Jay's been reading every day now, and writing too." Garcia raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Jay pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I wrote something about the storm, about Tank." The room grew still again as Jay unfolded the paper. His voice wobbled, but he read anyway. "When the rain came, I was scared. I thought the world forgot me. But a dog didn't. He found me in the dark. He didn't ask anything. He just stayed. And that's what saved me." Silence, then a slow clap. Then more. Jay looked up. "You did good, kid," someone said. "Real good," another added. Jay turned to Tank. "They're clapping for you too, you know." Tank wagged his tail and let out a happy bark. Later, Carla led Jay down the hallway, toward the training yard. Tank walked proudly beside him. "They repainted this too," she whispered. Jay peeked around the door frame. On the far wall of the yard was another mural. This one showed Tank alone in the rain, barking toward the woods. His eyes looked wild, desperate. "He never stopped searching," Carla said, "even when no one believed you were alive." DJ's eyes stung again. He always believed. The wind blew through the open doors, soft and cool. Jay stepped into the yard and looked up at the sky. There were no clouds, just clear blue. But in his mind, he could still feel the rain, hear the wind. He dropped to his knees in the center of the yard. Tank circled him once, then lay down with his head in Jay's lap. Carla watched from the doorway. Garcia joined her. "Most kids don't survive that kind of trauma," Garcia said. "But he didn't just survive, he's healing." Carla nodded. "Because he's not alone anymore." Jay ran his fingers through Tank's fur. "You remember the rain too, don't you?" he whispered. "You weren't scared. You were brave. Brave for me." Tank lifted his head and nuzzled into Jay's chest. The moment stretched, quiet and full. Later, as they walked back toward the car, Jay looked over his shoulder at the mural again. "Can we come back sometimes?" he asked. Carla smiled. Of course, this place is part of your story now." Jay nodded slowly. I want to bring other kids one day. Kids who think they're alone, so they know they're not. She ruffled his hair. You're turning into someone real special, Jay. Jay glanced down at Tank. He's the special one. Carla whispered, No, Jay, it's both of you, together. Jay opened the car door, and Tank jumped in, tail wagging. As the engine started, a drop of rain hit the windshield. Just one, Jay smiled. You feel that, boy? Tank barked once. Jay leaned over and hugged him tight. This time, we're not running from the rain. We're dancing in it. Did this story touch your heart? Give it a thumbs up, share it around, and drop your location in the comments.